Okay, we're at our 3 minutes past the hour, our canonical time to start. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you coming for an undefined meeting. I need to remind you that, as always, this is live streamed and recorded. So please keep that in mind. I don't know how many people will want to watch a discussion, but we archive these things so that they are available. And we really wanted today to talk about the possible future of the working group. As always, Reinhard, myself, Jim Sluka, and Lorenzo are available to take your suggestions and comments, and we very much appreciate them. Your ideas would be really things that we hope to integrate into the future of the working group. We have our usual communication channels. If you help us use those communication channels, we would appreciate it. As always, I will remind you that we have a great YouTube archive of talks, and we need to find more effective ways of getting people to know about those. And so your help in distributing that would be much appreciated. We have a Twitter feed. If people use that MSM viral tag, that would be great. Please do help us distribute the announcements for the workshops and meetings. We have a steering group meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. In a sense, the purpose of this meeting today was to make the steering committee discussions available to everybody. But we also have that tomorrow. If you think you should be invited to the steering committee and you're not invited, please do let us know and we will get you on the list. Our goal is not to exclude anyone. Are there any other announcements that we should make before we go into the meeting proper? No. Okay, we have 2 speakers for next week. We have 1 speaker lined up for the week after that, and then we have a gap. And so we really need your ideas about the people you'd like to hear. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But if you don't suggest people to speak, we don't have them speak. Please suggest yourselves, your students, people that you would like to hear, and help us keep this going. Lorenzo is incredibly good about reaching out and getting people to speak. And so we need your help doing that. So the topic today is really the future of the working group. We wanted this to be a fairly open discussion. Reinhard and I will try to be moderators and talk a little bit about our experiences and ideas. But the hope was that you would be the people who would give us suggestions and feedback. We're going to talk a little bit about the history and activities of the working group. And I'm going to ask you again for suggestions for speakers. Then Reinhard will talk a little bit more about ideas for ways forward, open that up. And we hope that that will be of interest to people and that we'll get ideas and feedback from the community. So just to begin with, the working group was initially proposed at the end of June, the beginning of July 2020. We talked about that with Grace Peng, and it was put through the IMAG MSM steering committee and approved, and our first meeting was held on October 22nd of 2020. Since then, we have held more than 110 seminars. All of those are archived and distributed. We have about 200 nominal members, of whom about 30 are regularly active, and we have a couple of active subgroups. And Jim Sluka has done yeoman service creating this IMAG MSM page for our group and keeping it up to date. One of the things that I think we've been pretty successful with have been publications. We have at least 4 publications in the form of review articles or opinion pieces, starting with the science editorial just about a year ago, a review that was done with Veronica in Opinion in Virology later in 2021. More recently, the paper that was spearheaded by Jacob Barak and others, Hannah, I see on the call, and others, which came out a few weeks ago in Frontiers in System Biology. And then Reinhardt's review on building digital twins of the human immune system, which was a product of the crowdsourcing working group that now is morphing into the Digital Twins Working Group subgroup, which has been accepted for publication in NJP Digital Medicine, NPJ Digital Medicine. If there are other papers that you are aware of that should be listed, please do send them. You can put them in the chat now if you like. If they're working on papers, that's fine too. We want to highlight those on the webpage through the community and let us know what you've got. Put them out on LinkedIn and elsewhere for distribution. I think it's perfectly legitimate if there are research papers that you published on the basis of connections made through the working group that you want to help us understand, that would be great too. So I will now turn over the primary discussion to Reinhard. And
yeah, thank you, James, and thanks to everybody for joining us for this discussion. We really look forward to hearing from you. What I want to briefly describe is a new subgroup that we've established that grew out of the crowdsourcing models subgroup that was established at the beginning. And over time, the goal of that subgroup really morphed into producing the paper that James had listed on the previous slide at the bottom. That paper has just been accepted. And so we felt that subgroup in its focus really had run its course. At the same time, there was a lot of interest in that group and in the rest of the working group on digital twins, in particular immune digital twins. And so we agreed that it might make sense to refocus the group into essentially how to build digital twins. And the goal is really to make this a working group, and the end product of that work will be what I sort of a bit cheesily like to refer to as a wedding planner for immune digital twin construction, where, you know, if you're 40 days out, you can look up what you need to do in terms of nameplates for dinner and things of that sort. So a very, very concrete, down-to-earth description of what it takes. And we want to do this quickly. We want to have it done by the end of this year. And we have now well over 20 members signed up. It's organized into what we call technical areas, which you could also call subgroups that focus on different things. And we've developed a number of sets of notes, and they will hopefully progress. So if that is something that interests you, please join us. There are a number of different things that are on the website. A couple of them is articles in the popular press. In the case of Tom Healycar, there was a great article about him and his work, and mentioning this working group in the Omaha World Herald. and similarly a piece in the Association of Computing Machinery newsletter on digital twins and the working group and some other things. There's other accomplishments. Please take a look at the website. They're all there. If you have accomplishments of any sort that are connected to the working group, please let us know and we can put them up there.
Okay. Another thing that we've been working on a lot is trying to organize some conferences. Reinhard and Anna have done a lot of this. I'll let Reinhard talk about the two that he's got approved.
All right, so there's one that will be a small, very focused workshop, a couple of days, 20 to 30 participants, a mixture of immunologists, modelers, computational people, to discuss, how to do immune digital twins. What are the real opportunities? What are some venues to some quick successes that will happen later this fall at or near the University of Florida. It's supported by a grant from the Army Research Office. And the other thing that and related to that is a proposal that we submitted that Anna Nirakis and I submitted with the input of a number of other people who are here and not here from the working group. And that focuses essentially on the same topic, except it will be a much larger program. It will be a 3-week workshop. We hope to bring in as many as 60 to 100 participants, supported largely by funding from the Institut Pascal in Paris that is supporting this. We will be looking for support in the US in particular to bring students, postdocs to this workshop. So we'll be knocking at the door of the NIH and maybe some other organizations for travel funding for students, and so that'll be a follow-up. That'll be very, very concrete. So hopefully, we actually, by the time we're done, we come out with some models, maybe some plans for model validation, and be on our way toward the digital twin in 1 or 2 particular use cases. Okay, thank you, James.
And I was going to say, we're also planning to compete. The Lorentz Center in Leiden, University of Leiden, is having a competition to propose 5-day workshops on the topic of digital twins. And several of us have been meeting and are hoping to put in a bid for a proposal in that institute. And I'll be reaching out to people on that. If people are interested in that idea. The Lorentz Center has a very specific kind of workshop. They're very intense. They're not presentation-based. They really are project-based. Get a lot of people together. There are 1 or 2 talks, and then people work. It's a great place to do concept papers, white papers, and projects. And I'm hoping we can put a bid in for that successfully. Reinhard suggested that we list grants submissions related to this. We're going to be submitting today a pre-proposal to Chan Zuckerberg on this topic. I gather from some of the things I've heard that some other people are involved in similar proposals. If they're related to the working group, and the working group ideas and materials have been helpful to you in those, we're very glad. We hope that these ideas come to fruition through any funding mechanisms. And if you want to let us know about your projects and ideas and how the working group may have helped them, we would be very grateful for that information. Any comments on that at the moment?
What are you submitting against, James, on the CZ?
So the Chan Zuckerberg has announced a call. They're going to do 5 very, very large regional centers over the next 5 to 10 years, addressing grand challenges in biology. And so we are doing one on the theme of immune digital twins. The reason you haven't heard much about it in the past couple of weeks in terms of this working group is that it is a requirement of that particular call for proposals that the participants have to be within a 2-hour driving distance of the headquarters. And so there is a geographical limitation which is imposed on anyone who's participating in this particular call. There may well be other opportunities if they like the general idea, whether they like the idea coming out of Atlanta in this general space or ours or something else. And there may be possibilities of going for other architectures that would allow us to include the working group more generally. Certainly the materials we prepared for this particular proposal might be things that could be used in other contexts for the working group as a whole. And so I don't see this as trying to compete with other projects. I think it's a way of trying to bootstrap. We all know that to do this properly is a big project. And so I think any way we can move it forward is desirable. And I think, I hope to see this happen. It would be wonderful if Chan Zuckerberg were to back it, whether they back it in Indiana or in Atlanta or somewhere else. To me, what's important is that this happen. And so I'm encouraged that there are a number of people who seem to be pursuing this particular opportunity. Okay, I want to come back to the seminar series. I'd ask everybody in the room, please suggest one name of somebody we should invite. Take 3 minutes and suggest one name. It doesn't take that long. It could be a paper that you've read, experimental, computational, anyone, and put it in the chat. And if everybody suggested 2 names, we would fill up our roster for the next 6 months. And so I really need people's support on this if we're going to have the seminars continue. I'm happy to go and suggest names on my own, but there are a lot of interests in this working group. And I think it's probably preferable that people, we reflect that diversity of interests so that I'm not the only person suggesting names. Okay. So Lorenzo, are you picking up the chat to be able to record this?
Yes, I'm taking note of the various suggestions.
And I guess one thing that has been talked about in terms of attendance for the seminars, and I don't want to take too much time on this, is whether the breadth of topics that we've been covering is appropriate. We've had a variety of people over the past 2 years, everything from journalists to study section directors to scientific directors at NIH. And we've covered topics ranging from virology, molecular biology, epidemiology. Is that breadth of topics appropriate? Are there topics that we're missing that should be added? Topics that we're covering that shouldn't be there? And then also, is there better ways to publicize both the seminar series itself and then specifically the videos that we've generated from there? So while people are thinking about people to invite, if there are any suggestions for things that we should do better, those would be appreciated. Well, doesn't seem to excite strong passions in part of the audience. So please do give us that one speaker before we end the meeting today. That could be your contribution to the working group for the month. We'd appreciate it very much.
Excuse me.
Reed, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask a naive question because, I sort of dabble in the modeling space, but I'm curious about like the landscape of this working group and how it fits in with like others like the Midas network. And I know in the mission statement, you sort of differentiate yourself, but I was wondering if there's any use in aligning with other modeling networks at some level, sort of like the Coney Island hot dog salesmen all standing next to each other. I don't know your thoughts on that. Maybe but something along those lines where you're coordinated with Midas or some of these others, even if you're not directly working with them, maybe you get crossover attendance.
Well, so with Midas, that's an interesting question. So we've had Midas present here, and we've presented to Midas. Midas tends to be not exclusively, but mainly focused on epidemiological models. They're, of course, have been around a long time and are extremely successful and very influential. And to some extent, this working group was inspired by them. And one of the remits and part of the reason that we have the structure that we do was that the feeling was that epidemiological data sets and models were being developed and discussed pretty extensively, but that there wasn't the same depth of development and discussion of in-host models. And so I think one of the reasons the working group had the title it did and the initial charge that it did was to try to create a forum for the discussion of in-host infection and immune response. Not that Midas didn't have an interest in that, but that wasn't their primary focus, and to provide a home for people who worked at slightly different scales and different questions. Reinhard, I don't know if you want to comment on that. Now, if there are other,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Now, if there are other discussion fora that you think we should be connected to, besides Midas, and that we're not aware of, then that's important. So if you're aware of groups that are doing these kinds of series in the space of infection and immune response in host, then we definitely like to coordinate with that. I know, for example, out of University of Toronto, there's a very nice seminar series on multiscale modeling, but more focused on developmental biology. There's a little bit of overlap with that. We've had people from there speak here and vice versa. But I don't know specifically, but beyond Midas, what would be a good group to coordinate with. Our relationships with Midas are cordial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Reed, that's a great suggestion. I totally agree, and I agree with what James said. One of the things that in my mind this working group covers or should cover is the interface between the individual and the environment. And that's the direct connection from within host modeling to epidemiological modeling. And so aligning with Midas, I think, is really important in the long run. In the short run, of course, as James says, Midas is way ahead. Of course, they got started with a significant NIH grant program, and we're sort of fledgling a little bit and trying to grow up. So I think in the long run, you're absolutely right. We need to align with Midas quite strongly, much more so than we have.
Yeah, I think it's explained really well. I think it's sort of a struggle from the perspective of, as James said, the in-host model is important. I clearly think it's important. I think there's sort of sometimes a hot potato of where the certain modelers sit, right? So is it if you're going to model infectious diseases intra-host, is that NIAID? Is that another IC that maybe focuses more on that? It's a good. I'll take that back and try to think of other folks that we could interact with. Two comments. So one comment is I do like the idea of a theme of integrating epidemiological scale with in-host scale. Like if there are folks doing that, as a topic or mini session, that would be very interesting. And then I think the other thing is it's not related to infectious disease, but there are folks at NCI that are really doing a lot with the digital twins, more so than NIAID at this point, right? So it might be interesting to hear some of the digital twin work from like National Cancer Institute folks at some level, but those are
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
If I may,
go ahead, Gary.
right. So in terms of scope, right, what this is, it's like in between Midas, and it's got a wider breadth than the NIAID systems biology centers, right, which are focused on individual pathogens. This is more of a comprehensive host side response into which different pathogens can be placed. So I don't know, because it is infectious disease, right? Because the infectious disease that we worry mostly about, not exclusively, but mostly about, are the ones that affect human beings. So the supposition that there is a common set of immune responses to infection should not be an incredible reach, and the scope of this is along the lines of a systems biology center, right? If that is an analogous sort of thing. So I think.
I mean, Reed, to give an example of what I think would be a beautiful project that that naturally brings those two scales together, it is, for example, to collect data that give an idea of immune profiles of populations in different countries, which would clearly be relevant to epidemiological modeling, but falls clearly within the realm of within-host data collection and modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm taking note on. Yeah, so I think that might even start to get into NHGRI at some level, since you're starting to get into human genetics and no, I'll take that back. I mean, I'll think about groups beyond Midas that we could sort of connect with as a way to sort of get more traction. And then your comment, Reinhard. And then to Gary's point, I mean, I think this is just a database, but which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but like the Division of Allergy, Immunology, and Transplantation, focusing on sort of the host. Maybe try to get a couple of folks from the DATE group as and involved in this as well, as another thought to think about. Okay, I'll stop talking now. But
Right, no, I think this is good. I mean, there are two questions, one of which we'll come to in a minute, which is sort of the future of the working group as quad group. And the other one was a narrower one of the seminars.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I've tried to do a little bit was to be pretty broad about the seminars. We've had people talking about computer technology generically, about modeling methodologies generically, sometimes on experimental methodologies. I've invited some journalists because I thought that they had some insights. Sometimes those have been very well received. Sometimes people haven't been so interested. Some people have felt that the topics were too broad and therefore they didn't want to come week by week. So for me, it's okay if people show up when there's a topic they're interested in. But there is a question about essentially how focused we want to be in our seminars. And typically we've been pretty broad. We've had immunologists, we've had epidemiologists, we've had people working in animals, both model animals in the lab and things like the other week, ducks, infectious disease in ducks, infectious disease in deer. Love to get some bat people to speak. But that reflects my own breadth of interest, which may or may not correspond so effectively to the interests of the group. And so I really do want to make sure that we address that. So ideas, I don't want to take too much time. I think these are good questions, and I think we should go on and we can have this conversation both on and offline in the future. So I will now turn over to Reinhard for a more serious topic of the future of the working group, which has already been broached by the things that have been mentioned by Reed and Gary.
Yeah, so for those of you who've been involved in this for some time. There periodically we've had meetings like this and discussions in the steering group that have revolved around a number of things. The most important one is that actually this, in my opinion, this working group was much more successful than I had expected. When James asked me to join him in doing this, we have, as James said, there's a lot of people, a lot of activities, and of course it's entirely a volunteer activity to keep the website going, keep the seminar series going, and there's a lot of things we could do if we had more infrastructure, and in particular if we had some more funding. So that's one of the challenges that we've debated at some length and tried to figure out ways we could address that. And the other issue I think that has maybe moved the working group in a direction that's quite focused and maybe a little too focused is that the title is viral pandemics. That's quite specific, and it prevents, or not prevents, but it doesn't entice a lot of people who have an interest in immunology possibly to join. It might limit the membership. The focus of the working group might limit the activities that one could sort of naturally engage in. And so in the steering group for some time, we've discussed different ways we could get around that. And so there's one possible solution we would like to bring to you and get your input. So that solution, if you move on to the next slide, is to essentially take a page from the book of the tech industry, right? As you know, there is now a company called Alphabet, which consists of Google and a number of other companies that work on self-driving cars and what have you. There's a company called Meta that has as one of its divisions or members Facebook and other things. And so that gave us the idea to maybe establish an umbrella organization that one could tentatively call something like Consortium for Predictive Immunology, with a much broader scope. And consortium consists of members, and there are a number of possibilities. This working group, of course, could be a member. MIDAS could be a member. Professional societies could be a member. Universities and companies. And it might potentially be a way to raise some funding. It might be, $5,000 from Indiana University to help us pay for, some fraction of a person's time to do our website. It might be some other things. So depending on how that consortium is set up as a not-for-profit that could actually take grants or things like that, that's something to be considered. It could support much broader activities, for example, an immune digital twin on, autoimmunity or something of that sort would naturally fit into this, whereas topic-wise, it wouldn't fit in quite so easily into a working group on viral pandemics. So the advantages of such a broader umbrella organization would be that the focus is more broad. The title and the focus could attract a broader set of participants. It could be a possible funding recipient, and it could be a better match to the different kinds of activities we might develop and engage in. So at this point, this is not terribly concrete. One of the things that we discussed as something we could do is to organize yet another workshop, sort of a repeat of what Grace had done in 2019, I think it was, a workshop that focused at this interface between data-driven and mechanistic modeling. I think it's a topic that's extremely timely, certainly when it comes to digital twins, when it comes to any number of other activities, modeling problems, and I think it is still not very well understood. And I think this group could shed a good light on that. So broadly, that's the idea, and any sort of input we could get from you in where to go with this, I think would be great. Or maybe there are good reasons why this is a really bad idea, and somebody can give us those reasons. Then we can move on to other things. Is that James? I don't remember now what was on the next slide, or if we're just done and have a discussion at this point.
I think that this was our primary discussion slide to
Okay,
open up the discussion at this point.
great.
And I realize that people have discussed these things in the context of the steering committee, but I'm hoping that people will have some ideas and suggestions here too. We did want to make it available more broadly. Many of the people here today are steering committee members, some are not. Ideas and suggestions are welcome, but not required.
So in this model, there would be the Consortium for Predictive Immunology, and then the current working group would be one element, and then there'd be other. I'm just going to make this up, but something on bacteria or something, something, a different topic would fit under that umbrella. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's this would not replace or supersede anything that this working group does at the moment in any of the subgroups or seminar series or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so examples of those would be, the immune interactions associated with oncology, right? Both in terms of oncogenesis, tumor progression, immunotherapies, whatever. There could be a subgroup on autoimmune diseases, should there choose to, be interested in doing something like that. But part of the motivation of this was the idea of the immune system as this kind of central hub from which all sorts of different pathophysiologic processes can arise. There's going to be a certain amount of, interoperability with respect to the information that's being generated, and again, similar to my comment about, the immune system, human immune system model unifying a whole different type of pathologic organisms and their manifestations, their infections. Similarly, issues with respect to self, non-self recognition, inflammation, propagation of inflammation, aberrant regulation of growth associated as a byproduct of inflammation, blah, 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 right? All those sorts of things are applicable to a whole suite of pathophysiologic processes.
I think that that's right. I mean, Gary, I think that the key point was that while there certainly are differences in immune response in the context of cancer or autoimmune diseases, there's enough overlap that to restrict only to infectious disease. Infectious disease may be a great model for deployment and development of these things, but clearly it's not going to stay there. And so to think about those extensions from the beginning may make sense, and you may be able to leverage developments done, as you point out, in the context of cancer, digital twins or other kinds of digital twins that would be critical to understanding immune digital twins in the context of infection. But I guess we were also going to ask questions about how people feel about organizationally, whether this kind of umbrella organization makes sense, whether it could be attractive, how to structure it, whether anybody wants to take charge of it. It's going to be work to develop, how we'd fund it, who would be the members. Many, many open questions.
Yeah, I guess the main criticism somebody could have is to say, well, this is yet another sort of administrative managerial layer on top of the layer we already have. And I think that it certainly would not work to again have this be an entirely sort of volunteer organization without any sort of support. So for this to fly, we really would need to seriously look for some funding to at least fund some basic administrative help. But I think this membership mechanism, from discussions I've had here at the University of Florida and what I've heard from others, I think it would not be terribly hard to find relatively small amounts of money in a number of different places that, when added together, could be a significant amount of money to keep this going.
I would say that given the size of the challenge, I think having an umbrella organization, at least for who comes from below, that needs to get funding, etc., it's some kind of stamp. It can add value to a proposal, even if it's from an individual or from the group itself. So I think having an organization such that it adds values.
I think another thing to think about is exactly how, and this has been discussed before, is what the level of engagement would be to be in this consortium. Is the consortium actually going to develop? Is the consortium a talking shop the way our working group has been? Or is the consortium actually going to be doing or trying to organize science? And those are somewhat different models, and might have different advantages and disadvantages. In the discussions I've been having for this CZ proposal that we have to put in today, I've talked to the state of Indiana. I've talked to various people. There certainly are pharmaceutical companies that are interested in modeling the immune system in a predictive way to try to improve their ability to do immune targeted drugs. There are a variety of organizations that are interested in these things. But we would have to make a case for what the specific value added of this consortium would be. And that might evolve with time, but it would have to be something that we think about, I think.
Is there a common meeting that you all go to? Maybe there's nothing universal, but a place like, if we get out of COVID, a place where everybody, and apologies if you've already talked about this, but a place where you could get together and even like have like a mini symposium within a larger meeting. Have you ever thought? I know that costs money, but just without money, thinking about money, just that type of approach.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I can't think of one. I mean, there are a number of different meetings people go to, whether it's a computational immunology meeting in Barcelona in September, or the Society for Math Biology in Germany, or other meetings like this. There's a number of different ones. I had a conversation maybe a month ago with a group in Utah that does scientific computational visualization at the University of Utah, and they have a consortium of maybe about 100 members, and they've become very adept at utilizing a couple of different meetings in different parts of the world to bring people together and routinely meet without really having to spend a bunch of extra money, because they also do not have a sort of a centralized funding mechanism for this. So it's a great suggestion. It's definitely something we would need to do for sure.
Yeah, we were kicking around that idea at a very high level, just like at ASTMH or something, not a modeling meeting, but it's something where when we get together and have like a sub theme, about some, so like, yeah, the IMAG has a session, within the larger, the day before ASV or whatever the meeting is, right? Something like that. And that
Yeah.
double dip. And maybe you
Yeah,
can
sure. We'd
recruit
have to
people
be,
that way.
yeah, we'd have to be clever about that.
Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, you have organizations like SIAM, Life Sciences, the Biophysical Society, potentially Biomedical Engineering Society. All of these potentially have aspects of this. Exactly how you'd fit would have to be thought about. Would you try to create they also have the idea of subgroups and or working groups within them. Would that be the appropriate place to do it, or would it be better to be freestanding? Those are their pluses and minuses. There is this new organization on medical digital twins that's trying to get going. And the Europeans are putting a lot of money into digital twins in various ways. Whether their idea of digital twin matches ours is something I'd rather kick into the weeds today, because I think I know where that topic goes. But we could have that conversation another day. This was more on structure and purpose, and the feeling that our working group has done a lot, but potentially there is a need for a different structure to take it further.
Yeah, I mean, one reason for the timing of this is that I think if we're going to do it, now's the time to decide. I mean, there's the famous scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly where Tuco is in the bathtub and a guy comes in and is going to kill him and points his gun at him and keeps talking about how he's going to kill him. And then Tuco with his gun in the bathtub just shoots him and then says, well, if you're going to shoot, don't talk. So I think that's the point where we are. If we're going to do this, we should do it. All right. Well, if there are any other suggestions along those lines, let us know. We'll have some discussion of this at the steering group meeting tomorrow. If you would like to give input then, or just listen in, feel free to join us. Let us know if you want to do that. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time and for your input. James, anything you want to say?
No, the usual, which is if we were going to have our seminars continue, we need your ideas, and we appreciate them. And also just feedback on whether this is something that you believe should continue. In a sense, these things could be occasional. There's no reason that that the working group should continue just because it has continued. And so sometimes it's time to say that we've done what we can do. And so if people have ideas about whether they think that this approach is worth pursuing, that's useful information. And it's okay if you say, hey, it's time to call it a day. That's all right. But we would like the feedback. And that doesn't have to be done on live stream TV. It's perfectly okay to do that in private if you'd rather not do it in public. Otherwise, I think, are there any other topics of general importance that we missed that people would like to bring up? No, well, I appreciate everyone coming today. I'm looking forward to having our seminar series resume next week. And thank you all for the suggestions about speakers, and we'll pursue those.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate you taking the time today. And we'll see you, many of you tomorrow and others next week for our regular seminar series.